Hiya guys, it's Will here back again. We're back here for another fight card prediction. We're going to be breaking down the TUF Latino America 2 finale from Monterrey, Mexico, as the welterweights Kelvin Gastelum and Neil Magny main event this card here after Matt Brown had to pull out via an ankle injury. My UFC 193 picks, Ronda versus Home, are up already. If you haven't seen that, go check that out already. Overall, the card's okay, there's some decent fights on it. First and foremost, before I get into my predictions, just a couple of little shout outs to Sean and Andrew at Severe MMA and the podcast for shouting me out, telling people to come and watch this. I very much appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Part and Shot podcast, which I was a part of last week, which was an absolute honour of mine. So James and Carlin, thank you very much. And if you folks can, go follow them at the Part and Shot on Twitter. And good friend of mine, Dan Levy, with his Half the Battle series, best fight picks is on Twitter. Go follow him on there. Come on to YouTube and watch his videos here. He's got a great one coming up with Benil Dariush, and these ones to finish off the year will be fantastic as well. So go follow him at Best Fight Picks. The first three fights I'm going to really just get through very quickly. The one from Latino, the TUF show. I've watched bits of the TUF show, but not an awful lot. I watched some of the fights today of the semi-finals to get into the final. We're going to get into it. It's going to be in the welterweight division. The first fight is going to be Vernon Ramos against Alvaro Herrera. Both guys didn't really do too much in the show. Herrera got to the kind of like the quarterfinals per se. I think it was the semi-finals in the welterweight bracket. But Vernon Ramos is 3-0. All his wins via sub. Likes to try and get the fight to the ground. Didn't see too much on his feet, where Herrera looked like he's a better counter striker. So I think you can tell the way this is going to go. It's like Herrera's going to try and keep it in the feet, while Ramos is going to want to take it to the ground. I'm going to go Herrera via decision. Not going on much, but from what I've seen, I'm going to go Herrera. Just think he's a little bit more kind of well-rounded and can get the job done. On to the lightweight finale, we have Enrique Barzola against Horacio Gutierez. From what I've seen of Barzola, from some of his fights before he came into the TUF, he had a 10-2 record. Let's get that out there. 4 wins via KO TKO, 4 wins via sub, 2 wins via decision, with his 2 losses coming via decision as well. He's quite a tough guy. He's got a good chin on him. Likes to come forward. He's pretty well-rounded everywhere. He's not great in any aspect, but he's just one of these kind of well-rounded fighters. I'm trying to say well-rounded, and I'm not trying to say like he's bad or he's shit or anything. But for the fighters he's been facing, he's still alright. He's against Gutierrez. He has 2-1. He's shown a lot of power on the show. But I really don't know what I'm kind of going on here. I think I'm going to go Barzola via a decision, but not too clued up in this fight. From what I've seen, it could be fairly close, but I like Barzola. That's going to be my pick via decision. And in the welterweight division, we have Enrique Marin against Erick Montano. Both guys were decent on the show. Montano had a couple of finishes on there, TKO and subs. Marin's just a really kind of well-rounded fighter with submission skills. He's got an 8-2 record. 5 of those wins coming via submission, where Montano has a 6-3 record, with all of his 3 losses come via submission. So if Marin can get this to the ground, I think the Spaniard can go on and win this here, and he could get a submission. So I'm going to go with him. I'm going to side with him in this one. I'm going to go submission for Enrique Marin. So that's the 3 fights out there really quickly. Moving on to the lightweight division, we have Valmir Lazaro against Michel Prazeres. Valmir Lazaro, let's start off with him. He's coming off a really nice win over James Krause. Fights out Nova União. I think he's like 15 wins in his career, and 13 of those are by KO TKO. So you can see, like most of the fighters that come out of that gym, he's a decent striker, overall good striker. I thought in that fight with James Krause, he just controlled the distance a little bit more. I don't think James Krause really showed up for that fight. I think if he even give that extra 5-10%, he could have beat Lazaro in my opinion. But Lazaro's a tough guy. He comes forward, he gasses out quite late in the fight, so that's something you're going to have to keep an eye on here. Michel Prazeres, he's I think it's his 5th fight in the UFC. with his last fight coming at a loss against Kevin Lee, who that's nothing to be ashamed of, because Kevin Lee is a very, very, very tough fighter. He has a really nice win on there against Mirbek Taisumov, where he got him via decision, I believe it was, in that one. So, but he gasses out fairly bad as well, with his losses coming to Paulo Thiago, which is pretty bad because Paulo Thiago is not a good fighter and he's been on the decline for a long, long time as well. So he he's 2 wins in the UFC against Jesse Ronson, and he has that win against Taisumov. I think from what I remember from that, Taisumov was ill going into that fight, had the flu symptoms or food poison or something or other. Because Taisumov is, since then, he's came on leaps and bounds and he's got himself a good fight against Benil Dariush. But I say, he came into the UFC after being in Shooto, lost that decision to Paulo Thiago, beat Jesse Ronson via a very close split decision, beat Taisumov, beat Kevin Lee. But overall, he just wants to get this to the ground now. If he gets this to the ground, it's going to be a tough night for Lazaro down there. I've been going back and forward on this one a lot, but I think I'm just going to side with Michel Pesares, just because he's got the better grappling. I think he's got enough to kind of keep it kind of fairly close on the feet, put him against the cage, take him down, kind of beat him up, keep him there. But wouldn't surprise me one bit if Lazaro wins this fight either. But going to go with Pesares, not by too much though. Not overly confident in the pick either. In the featherweight division, this is going to be a really good fight. We've got Gabriel Benitez against Andre Fili. Andre Fili is coming off, I'm a big Team Alpha Male guy, so I'm hoping he does really well in this one. But I do think he's got a very tough opponent in Gabriel Mogli Benitez. Fili is coming off that loss to Godofredo Castro Pepe down in Brazil, which he kind of just got caught. To be fair, Pepe is on a run at the minute. I don't know if he's on something. He's on the magma, as they say down in Brazil there. He looks like he's on something. He came into the UFC on fairly short notice, beat Jeremy Larson, showed some really nice boxing skills, pieced Jeremy Larson up in the feet and then got the finish there in the second round. Faced Max Holloway, which was a big jump up in competition in all fairness. Gave it his all, was always just a little bit lacking against Max Holloway, and then got submitted in the third round. Went down to Brazil, beat Felipe Sanchez, got a really, really solid decision down there. I thought it was a really solid performance, probably his best one in the UFC. And then he moved on to go to Fidel Castro Pepe, and then he got a little bit too aggressive, and Pepe caught him with a flying triangle choke, and it really lynched it on and just did not let go, and Fili had to tap. So I'm looking forward to seeing Fili come back here and hopefully get the win. But he's against Benitez, who was on the first edition of the TUF Latino America. He trains out of AKA now under Javier Mendez, and he's striking. We've seen his last fight against Clay Collard was really, really enjoyable. He's he's using footwork a lot more, which I'm trying to say. He's in and out a little bit more, and he's got a fairly good gas tank as well. He can take a shot, because Collard hit him with a load of shots at UFC 188. But being at that high altitude, he really had a good gas tank and he kept on going. I don't really think he's got too many advantages. He maybe hits harder than Andre Fili, but I'm going to go with Andre Fili in this one. I don't think he'll finish Benitez, but I do think he can get a decision down in Mexico against Benitez. So I'm going to go Andre Fili, unanimous decision. Next up, we've got Scott Jorgensen facing off against Alejandro Perez. Now, Scott Jorgensen is a absolute veteran of the sport, coming up through the WEC, and he's faced a lot of the top guys, but he's on a really bad run at the minute. And I'm a little surprised he's still in the UFC. I know he's a pretty exciting fighter to watch. Either kind of he puts himself out there or he gets finished, which is never great. He lost to Uriah Faber, and then he had a couple of fights where he was just totally outclassed by Jussier, Formiga, and Zach Makovsky. Then he got a win against Danny Martinez, and I thought that was a little bit closer than a unanimous decision, in all honesty. But then he's followed it up with losses to Wilson Hayes via he got tapped out, they got put to sleep there in an arm triangle choke, and then he lost to Manny Gamburian, who's looked very good down in that 135 division. I think this could be his swan song in the UFC. I think if he loses this fight, I don't think we'll see him again. He has got a really nice wrestling advantage. He has got some nice submissions if he used them. We haven't seen that in a long time, though. Back in the WEC, he had a couple of nice stoppages via submission. Likes to plant his feet, throw some leg kicks, and throw that right hook with a jab. He throws a jab, a right hook, throws his jab, and then throws the right hook after it. But he hasn't really got too much to. He's good at everything, but not great at anything. That's what I'm trying to say. He's still a decent fighter, though. I still think this could be his swan song in the UFC, but he's against Alejandro Perez here, who was the winner of the TUF Latino America, beat Jose Quinones in the final, and then came out last time and got submitted by Pat Williams, which was a little bit surprise for me. I know it was a close fight going into it, but I didn't think he would get stopped down in Mexico there. Very aggressive in the feet. He's got some nice speed about him. Doesn't hit very hard though. Throws some nice body kicks, and he angles off to the sides very well too. So that's something you have to keep an eye on. I think the longer the fight goes, he'll still have the speed advantage over Scott Jorgensen. This is another fight I've been going back and forward on. It's really hard to pick a winner here. I think I'm just going to go Scott Jorgensen, but once again I am not confident in that pick whatsoever. But Scott Jorgensen would be a very close decision, split decision. Welterweight division, Hector Urbina against Bartosz Fabinski. This is another fight that isn't very great. I'm not going to say too much about it. Hector Urbina was on the TUF show, didn't really show much on there. Got beat by Cathal Pendra, I think, in the first fight in the house, and then came out against Edgar Garcia and won that fight very, very quickly. I didn't see that finishing that quickly with a nice submission down there. Bartosz Fabinski beat Gareth McLaren in Poland, and just basically what he did in that fight was he took Gareth McLaren down time after time. I think he had like 10 takedowns in that fight. It was absolutely just pure domination. He'd let him back to his feet, then take him down, hit him with some shots, up and down, up and down. He has some nice KO power as well, which I've seen in his fights previous to being in the UFC. So it's been interesting to see if he can maybe catch Urbina later on in the fight. But Urbina has got a really good chin. I'm going to go for another close fight. It's just people that are matched up that are similar skill sets, not very good at anything. But with these people, it's going to make it close. I think I'm going to go. Wow. I want to side with Fabinski, but I think I'm going to go Hector Urbina, but not by too much. So Hector Urbina for me via decision. Bantamweight division, I think this could be a good fight. Erick Perez facing off against Taylor Double Impact Lapilus. I've knew about Taylor Lapilus for a couple of years. I've seen him come up through. He's got a brother who fights as well, Damien Lapilus, and I've heard about him come out of Paris, France, out of there, and he came into the UFC and he had a nice performance against Rocky Lee, and then I thought his last performance against Ulka Sasaki, moving down to the bantamweight division, he looked fantastic. He was a very good counter striker in that fight. Sasaki is one of them people, he's quite awkward to face, but he really hurt Sasaki in that fight and took him out with some beautiful shots on the ground there. Showed like really good speed to get in and out and hit with a big right hand, but he also followed up with some nice body kicks as well. Erick Perez, on the other hand, it's the first we've seen him since his loss to Brian Caraway in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Had high hopes for this kid, and he's kind of really not progressed on like I thought he might. But being back in Mexico here, maybe lift him up a little bit. I just don't like the matchup for him, in all honesty. I think that Lapilus is a guy who's coming up through the division very, very quietly. Not many people are speaking about him, but he's racking up those wins. As I say, his wins in the UFC for Erick Perez, Edwin Figueroa, Brian Bloodworth, Ken Stone, John Albert. Not one of those guys is still in the UFC. with his losses come to Takeda Misagaki and Caraway, which are big step ups. I'm going to go with Taylor Lapilus in this fight. I just think he hits harder. He's got better speed. He's I think personally he's got the better submission game once it goes down there as well. I think I might give Perez maybe the wrestling edge, but it's nothing that Lapilus can't get back to his feet and unload on Perez. Taylor Lapilus for me. I think he could get a finish in this one as well, so I'm going to go a third round TKO for Taylor Lapilus. Moving on to the main card, Efrain Escudero against Leandro Silva. It's pretty good to see Escudero back in the UFC. I think he's had like 3 stints in the UFC, but this one he's racked a couple of wins together. I saw him in Vegas, spoke to him, and he was looking forward to obviously going down to Mexico and being a coach, which is always a nice. He's a former TUF winner himself. He came back into the UFC, lost to Leonardo Santos. Didn't look great in that fight, but his next fight he showed improvements on his feet. Now we all know Efrain Escudero has had he's got great ground skills and he's very dangerous once it gets to the ground. But we've seen against Rodrigo de Lima that he has got some striking that's coming along, which was probably the missing link with him. And then against Drew Dober, he caught a beautiful standing guillotine choke, and Dober he just put his neck in the wrong place, and Escudero posted up and just did not let go of the choke, and Dober had to tap out. Against Leandro Silva, he's coming off a win over Luis Gonzalez, I remember right, from the Hollywood card, and before that he beat Drew Dober, which was not a good thing. I think it got turned to a no contest. Another guy who's not overly great in anything. He likes to push you against the fence, try and take you down and dictate the fight from you being on your back. I don't think he can do that with Escudero. If you put Escudero on his back, he's quite crafty with submissions. Another close fight, and I'm just leaning towards Efrain Escudero. Once again, not confident at all, but I'm going to go with Escudero via submission. I'm going to go submission third round. Moving on, best fight in the entire card, we have Jussier Formiga against Henry Cejudo. Now this is probably a fight to determine the next challenger to Demetrius Johnson. Jussier Formiga has been a guy who has been around for a long time. He's shown a lot of, especially recently, he's shown a lot of improvements with his striking. We all know the guy is one of the best fighters when it goes to the mat, but I don't think he's going to get this fight to the mat, if you know what I'm saying. So his only loss, I think, in the UFC is to John Dodson and to Joseph Benavidez. They're 2 of the top 3 guys in the flyweight division, with wins over Chris Carriasso via decision. He submitted Scott Jorgensen via a beautiful choke, rear naked choke, and since then he's racked up 2 very good wins over Zach Makowski and Wilson Hayes. As I say, what's been good with Jussier Formiga is his stand-up has improved. He's thrown more leg kicks. He's just throwing more jabs. He's just putting more out on the feet, more input out in the feet. Because if he can get better up there, he's really not going to be too bothered about getting taken down, because he's got his submission skills down there. But in this fight, I just don't like it at all. I think Henry Cejudo is just better everywhere. He's obviously got that Olympic wrestling, which is very good. But since he's been in the UFC, we've seen a lot of his striking come through, and he's got some very fast hands. He's got a lot of speed about him, and then when he wants to, he just takes you to the ground and he beats your ass down there as well. Cejudo, I think, could give Demetrius Johnson some fits when it comes to grappling. Demetrius Johnson is a really good fighter once the fight hits the mat, but Cejudo is just a different beast for we've seen what these Olympic kind of style athletes can do in that in the realm of it, kind of MMA with Rousey and Daniel Cormier and so on. But his wins in the UFC, Dustin Kimura, he showed his wrestling in that one, and then he's just followed up with decisions over Chris Carriasso and Chico Camus very, very easily. I thought Camus actually gave him a good account of himself, but Cejudo did very well in that fight. I like Henry Cejudo, I like him via decision, so that's what I'm going with there. Co-main event, this is a bit of a sickener for me. Ricardo Lamas against my favourite fighter, probably all time. It's Diego Sanchez, who's moving down the featherweight division here. I'm going to start off with Diego Sanchez. Personally, I think the guy should have retired. He's not got beaten badly, but he's not really won convincingly in the fights that he's kind of been given. Ross Pearson, he didn't deserve to win that fight. Takanori Gomi was a lot closer fight, but I still think Takanori Gomi won that fight. Face Miles Jury. Miles Jury's just a new breed. He's too good everywhere. He's going to beat your ass. Gilbert Melendez, he had his time in that third round, but for the first 2 rounds he got his ass beat. Interesting to see him down here at the featherweight division, making that cut down there. I don't like it. I think the weight cut's going to really hurt him. I think it's going to, we've seen with these guys who have, now we've seen that he's got a great chin and he gets hit, but if you keep going down weight divisions, you're going to lose that kind of flexibility in your chin. Not that he's against a big striker here in Ricardo Lamas, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of Sanchez kind of sticking around for too long. I think he's a Hall of Famer with just these quality of fights that he's got in the UFC. Obviously was the first ever Ultimate Fighter. Talking about Ricardo Lamas, he's coming off that fight with Chad Mendes where he got poleaxed with a huge shot by Chad Money Mendes. Before that, had a beautiful submission last time out down in Mexico against Dennis Bermudez, and then he had a decision win over Hakran Diaz. Don't want to get into it too much. I just think that Diego's going to get too aggressive and Ricardo Lamas is going to put him in the ground and he's just going to beat him up for 3 rounds. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Diego comes out and clean clocks Ricardo Lamas and wins via knockout. Don't see it. Ricardo Lamas via decision for me. Main event of the night, we have Kelvin Gastelum returning to the welterweight division as he faces off against a guy who's fought like 10 times in like 2 years in Neil Magny, who's coming in here obviously for short notice for Matt Brown. Kelvin Gastelum last time out smashed Nate Marquardt, hit him with some huge shots, which wasn't was to be expected, is what I'm trying to say. But a little bit surprised he's back down at the welterweight division here, so hopefully he's got his shit together, because we've seen against Tyron Woodley that was pretty embarrassing for him. He was well overweight. I think he had some problems with that as well, but in that fight with Tyron Woodley I thought he actually fought very well too. But he's a guy we've seen, he won the Ultimate Fighter and he's just fairly decent everywhere. You go to the ground, he can catch a submission like he did with Jake Ellenberger. He's got some shots in the feet like we've seen with Nate Marquardt that he can hurt you with. So he's very well rounded, very aggressive, and he's a guy that's, I think he's always going to improve. He's still a very young kid in the game. He's against Neil Magny here. I say he's won like 8 fights inside like 18 months, which is kind of crazy. Last time he was actually supposed to face Wonderboy, I believe, at UFC 195 before he got pulled into this fight. But last time out against Erick Silva looked horrible. He's obviously coming off something, that he's been down in Brazil. That's why they've kept him in Brazil, because he looked like absolute shit. Before that, he got totally just outclassed by Damian Maia. Really got nothing off there against Damian Maia. Very impressive win over Hyung-Yu Lim, going over there to the Philippines and knocking him out with some vicious ground and pound. Submitted Kiichi Kunamoto, knocked out William Macario. We all know what his game's going to be here. He's going to try and use his range to stop Gastelum coming in, but I just don't see. Gastelum's a bull. He's going to bulldoze you and he's going to get you down there. So I'm going to go with Kelvin Gastelum. I'm going to go a second round submission for Kelvin Gastelum. So that's my picks for UFC Fight Night TUF Finale Latino America. I'll be back for UFC Fight Night South Korea in Seoul, I believe it is. Benson Henderson against Thiago Alves. Keep an eye out for that. It'll probably be out in the next week. So come follow me on Twitter, WillMartin7MMA on Twitter, and we can always talk some fights on there. Thank you again to everybody. I'm very close to breaking through 50,000 views for my videos for the last few years. I very much appreciate everybody who's helped me on Twitter, on here, and a shout out to Colm, who made the header for my YouTube channel. Very much appreciate, buddy. Thank you. Thanks for that. I'll be back for UFC Henderson versus Alves very soon. So everybody take care and enjoy the fights when they come round.